The message sent. Hook. The cold vastness of space was empty. The blackness stretched on forever, broken only by the small specks of distant stars. In this dark sea, the Earth stood like a tiny gem, vulnerable and unaware of the dangers lurking in the galaxy. But far beyond Earth, in the heart of the galaxy, the Galactic Empire moved closer, drawn to the blue planet they had long watched from afar. They were a mighty force, ruling over countless star systems, and now they had set their sights on Earth. On Earth, the people went about their daily lives, living their usual routines. They had no idea what was coming. But in the heart of Earth's defense fleet, things were different. Captain Alex Hayes stood in the command center, his face serious as he looked over the galaxy map. His eyes traced the path of the Empire's fleet, growing closer to Earth with each passing day. The humans had never seen a fleet like this before, so powerful and so advanced. His fingers hovered over the controls, eyes scanning the message that had just come through. It was from a mysterious source, one that had warned Earth of the impending invasion. The Galactic Empire was ready to strike, and their message was clear. Earth was weak, and they would fall easily. Captain Hayes clenched his jaw. He had heard of the Empire's ruthless nature, their ability to wipe out entire civilizations without a second thought. But humanity wasn't just going to accept defeat. "We can't let this happen," Hayes muttered under his breath. He had seen what the Empire did to other worlds. Whole populations wiped out, their cultures erased from existence, and now they were coming for Earth. But Hayes had a plan. He had studied the tactics of the Empire, and he knew they underestimated humanity. It was time to send a message of their own, a message that would shake the very foundation of the Empire's power. The crew around him worked quickly, sending out a transmission to all corners of the galaxy. It wasn't just a message to the Empire. It was a message to anyone who might be watching, to anyone who thought Earth was a weak, defenseless world. Captain Hayes stood tall, his voice steady as he gave the order to send the message. "Send it now," he said, his eyes burning with determination. On the screens before him, the words appeared in bold letters. "Stay away from Earth." It was simple, but powerful. The message carried across the galaxy, traveling through vast distances, reaching the ears of the Galactic Empire. The crew looked at each other in silence. Would it be enough? Would the Empire listen to their warning? But the silence didn't last long. A loud beeping filled the command center, and the face of an alien appeared on the screen. It was the Empire's ambassador, Drakthar. His face was covered in dark, slick scales, his eyes glowing a deep red. His expression was cold, calculating. "You dare send us a warning?" Drakthar's voice was calm, almost amused. "Do you think that a simple message will stop us? The Empire does not negotiate with insects like you." Captain Hayes stood tall, refusing to be intimidated. "We are not insects," he said, his voice unwavering. "We are humans, and we're not afraid of you." For a moment, the ambassador said nothing. The silence between them felt thick, like the tension before a storm. Finally, Drakthar spoke again, his voice cold and threatening. "Your resistance will be crushed. You will learn the hard way that the Empire does not tolerate threats. Prepare for your destruction." With that, the transmission cut off. Captain Hayes stood still for a moment, his mind racing. The words the ambassador had spoken were harsh, but they didn't scare him. They only made him more determined. The Empire thought they could intimidate humanity, but they didn't understand Earth's greatest strength, its people. "We've made our stand," Hayes said quietly to his crew. "Now, we wait." The crew members exchanged uneasy glances. They had just sent a message to a power they couldn't even comprehend. It was risky, but they had no choice. They could either submit to the Empire's will and live in fear, or they could fight for their survival. The next few hours felt like days. The crew of the defense fleet waited in silence, watching the galaxy map as the Empire's fleet moved closer to Earth. The countdown to the inevitable battle was ticking down. But just as they prepared for the worst, something unexpected happened. A new transmission came in. It wasn't from the Empire, nor was it from any of their known allies. The message came from a mysterious source, one that was unlike anything Earth had ever seen before. The message was simple, but chilling. "We've received your warning. You're not alone. Stand firm. Help is coming." The crew exchanged confused looks. Who could this message be from? Were there others out there, watching Earth from the shadows? And if so, who were they? The unknown message left more questions than answers, but one thing was certain. Earth wasn't alone in this fight. The suspense grew. The Empire was closing in, but now Earth had an ally, or at least someone who was willing to help. Captain Hayes clenched his fists, staring at the screen. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and humanity's message had just been heard. But the question remained, would it be enough? The tension was unbearable. Captain Hayes knew that the Empire's fleet was still coming, but with this new message, a glimmer of hope had emerged. For the first time, humanity wasn't facing the enemy alone. The stage was set for the fight of a lifetime. The Empire strikes back. The transmission from the mysterious source had given humanity a shred of hope, but Captain Hayes knew that hope alone wasn't enough. They had sent their warning, and now the Empire was coming. There was no turning back. As the hours passed, the tension in the command center grew thicker. Everyone could feel it. The weight of what was coming. The knowledge that the fate of Earth rested on their shoulders. The fleet's sensors were on high alert, scanning for any signs of the Empire's ships. The crew worked tirelessly, monitoring the situation, trying to find any advantage they could. Captain Hayes paced back and forth in front of the command console, his mind racing. He couldn't shake the words of Drakthar, the Empire's ambassador, ringing in his ears. "Your resistance will be crushed." The screen flickered, and suddenly, a deep, booming voice filled the room. "Prepare for the end of your pitiful existence, humans." It was the same cold voice they had heard earlier, now dripping with disdain. The face of Drakthar appeared on the screen again, but this time, his expression was not amused. It was a dark, dangerous look, a look that sent a chill through the entire room. "We've been patient," Drakthar's voice echoed, "but no more. Your time is over. The Empire will not be denied." The fleet's sensors began to register massive amounts of energy in the distance, and then there it was, the Empire's fleet, arriving at the edge of the solar system. Dozens, no, hundreds of massive ships, all bearing the terrifying insignia of the Galactic Empire. Each ship was a behemoth, bristling with weapons capable of reducing entire planets to rubble. Captain Hayes watched the approaching fleet on the view screen, his mind going numb for a moment as he saw the sheer scale of the threat. "We're outmatched," one of his officers whispered from behind him. "There's no way we can win against that kind of firepower." Captain Hayes didn't turn around. He kept his eyes on the screen, his expression hardening. "We don't have to win," he said quietly. "We just have to make sure they know they've made a mistake. We will fight until the end." The crew nodded in silence, knowing that Hayes was right. The humans might not have the advanced technology or the vast armies of the Empire, but they had something the Empire could never understand. Their determination, their will to fight for their home. And that, Captain Hayes believed, would be their strength. The seconds stretched on, each one heavier than the last, as the Empire's fleet drew nearer. A few more minutes, and they would be in range for their first strike. Suddenly, the lights in the command center flickered, and the room was plunged into darkness. A few moments later, the emergency lights came on, casting an eerie red glow over the room. The crew scrambled to check their systems, but nothing was working. Communications were down. Sensors were malfunctioning. Everything had gone silent. A low hum filled the air as the crew tried to restore power, panic beginning to spread among them. Captain Hayes clenched his fists, trying to maintain control. This wasn't just an accident. Something was wrong. The Empire was jamming their communications, trying to cut them off from any chance of survival. "We've lost all communication with the fleet," one of the officers said, his voice shaky. "We can't let them isolate us," Hayes muttered. "Get the backup systems online. We're not going down without a fight." But as they scrambled to restore power, a terrifying realization settled over them. The Empire's ships were already within firing range. The fleet's main weapons were still offline, but Hayes wasn't about to let that stop them. He knew the Empire was expecting an easy victory, that they thought the humans would fall before them. But they were wrong. "Prepare for a surprise," Hayes said, his voice steady as he turned to his officers. "We're going to send them a message they'll never forget." He had a plan, an unorthodox plan, but one that might just work. If they couldn't fight the Empire with overwhelming firepower, they would have to use their ingenuity. The humans were good at that. They had always been good at adapting, at finding creative solutions when faced with impossible odds. As Hayes worked with his crew, devising a last-ditch effort to defend Earth, the Empire's fleet continued its approach. The massive warships were closing in on Earth's orbit, their weapons charging up, ready to deliver the final blow. But just as the Empire's ships locked their weapons on Earth, something unexpected happened. A new voice echoed across the fleet's communication channels, overriding the Empire's jamming systems. It was clear, calm, but filled with authority. "We received your warning, Captain Hayes. We're here." Captain Hayes froze, looking at the screen. His heart skipped a beat. The unknown message, the mysterious allies. They had arrived. The Empire's fleet suddenly stopped in its tracks, the massive ships pausing as if caught in a moment of disbelief. The mysterious voice continued, "Prepare yourselves. The battle is about to shift." On the screen, new ships appeared, a fleet of sleek, advanced warships, unlike anything the humans had ever seen. These ships were faster, more agile, and their weaponry glowed with a strange energy that sent a ripple through the Empire's formation. Captain Hayes felt a surge of hope. The tables had turned. The Empire, which thought it had already won, now faced a threat unlike any it had ever encountered. For the first time, the Empire's fleet hesitated, and in that hesitation, humanity found its chance. The battle for Earth was far from over, but now, humanity was no longer alone. The fight had only just begun. The unexpected allies. The situation had shifted dramatically, and Captain Hayes couldn't help but feel a surge of hope as the unknown fleet made its presence known. They had come, just as promised, but the question now was, who were they? The new ships on the screen were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. They moved with a fluid grace that the Empire's lumbering behemoths could not match, and their weapons glowed with a brilliant energy that could burn through the Empire's shields like they were paper. The Empire's fleet had halted, but it wasn't long before they began to react. Their ships formed into defensive positions, and Captain Hayes could see the flurry of movement on the Empire's ships. The calm demeanor of their previous arrogance was now gone, replaced with the urgency of a battle they hadn't expected. The mysterious voice came again, breaking the tension that hung thick in the air. "We've arrived, Captain Hayes. It's time to show the Empire what happens when they mess with Earth." Hayes couldn't believe what he was hearing. There was no mistaking the determination in that voice. Whoever these allies were, they were just as committed to fighting the Empire as humanity was. But their presence raised even more questions. How had they known about the Empire's attack? What was their connection to humanity? And perhaps most importantly, could they be trusted? The voice continued, "We've been watching the Empire for a long time. Your message was received loud and clear. They've underestimated Earth's resolve, and now they'll learn what happens when you try to bully a planet that fights back." Hayes stared at the screen as the alien ships deployed, taking up strategic positions between Earth's defense fleet and the Empire's. The Empire's ships, still stunned by the sudden appearance of this new threat, hesitated for a brief moment, just long enough for the mysterious ships to move into place. "Sir, the Empire is responding," one of the officers said nervously. They're powering up their weapons. They're going to engage. Captain Hayes was already giving orders. Prepare to engage. We won't let them push us around. The Empire's ships opened fire, their massive weapons unleashing a barrage of energy blasts. The air crackled with the intensity of their assault, and the vast beams of energy shot toward Earth. But before they could reach their targets, the mysterious ships intervened. Their sleek vessels moved with lightning speed, and with a series of dazzling energy pulses, they deflected the Empire's attacks as though they were nothing more than fireworks. The Empire was stunned. For the first time, their advanced weaponry was being rendered useless. They had not anticipated a fleet capable of matching them in firepower or speed. Engage the Empire's lead ship. Captain Hayes barked, his voice steady despite the chaos. We need to show them we're not afraid to fight. The human fleet followed his orders without hesitation. They had already been preparing for this moment, and now they had an unexpected advantage. With the mysterious fleet in place, they could finally push back. As they charged forward, Captain Hayes' thoughts raced. Who were these allies? How had they managed to avoid detection for so long? Was this a trap, or were they truly on humanity's side? Despite the questions, one thing was certain. Humanity had just gained an incredible ally. And together, they were going to make the Empire regret underestimating Earth. The battle raged on, the sound of explosions and energy blasts filling the air. The Empire, once so confident in their superiority, was now reeling from the unexpected resistance. The mysterious ships moved with incredible precision, their weapons striking the Empire's shields with pinpoint accuracy, causing massive explosions with each hit. The Empire's once impenetrable fleet was now under heavy assault, and their ships were beginning to show signs of damage. As the battle unfolded, Captain Hayes could see the tide turning. The Empire, once certain of its victory, was now struggling to maintain control. Their ships were no match for the speed and firepower of the mysterious fleet, and their tactics were falling apart under the pressure. "This is incredible," one of Hayes' officers shouted in disbelief. "We're actually winning." But Hayes didn't allow himself to get caught up in the excitement. The war was far from over, and he knew the Empire wouldn't back down easily. They had underestimated Earth once before, but now that they knew humanity was capable of standing up to them, they would fight even harder. "We've only just begun," Hayes muttered under his breath. "We're not out of the woods yet." Suddenly, a new voice crackled across the comms, cutting through the noise of battle. "Captain Hayes, this is Commander Rilnock. We've been monitoring the situation from the rear. We've identified the Empire's command ship. If we can take it down, we'll break their morale. We'll have a chance to win this." Hayes nodded. "Understood. We're moving in now. Target the command ship. Everyone, focus your fire on it." The human fleet and their mysterious allies shifted their focus, aiming all of their weapons at the Empire's largest and most powerful ship. With a coordinated effort, they fired everything they had. Energy blasts, missiles, and pulse weapons tore through the void, all heading straight for the heart of the Empire's command ship. The Empire's ship retaliated with everything it had, but the combined force of humanity and their mysterious allies was too much. With a final, blinding explosion, the command ship's shields collapsed, and its core was destroyed. The Empire's fleet faltered. Their once united force was now in disarray, their morale shattered. Without their command ship, they were lost. "Victory is within our grasp," Captain Hayes said, his voice filled with determination. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, Earth had a chance. The mysterious allies had proven their worth. The Empire had made a grave mistake, and now humanity was about to make them pay. The Empire's last stand. The Empire's once proud fleet had been thrown into disarray. The loss of their command ship sent ripples through their ranks. Their forces, once united and confident, were now scrambling to reorganize. They had no choice but to fight back, to push against the combined might of Earth's fleet and the mysterious allies that had come to their rescue. Captain Hayes watched the chaos unfold on the battle screen, his eyes narrowing. The Empire's remaining ships were regrouping, preparing for one final stand. But he could feel the shift in the air. The battle had reached a critical point. Humanity had proven itself, and now, with the help of their newfound allies, they were on the cusp of victory. "Their morale is broken," one of Hayes' officers reported, her voice filled with awe. "The Empire's command fleet is falling apart. It's just a matter of time before they retreat." Captain Hayes' gaze lingered on the screen, watching as the Empire's ships struggled to maintain their formation. The tide of battle had shifted irrevocably in humanity's favor. It wasn't just their advanced technology or tactics that had turned the tables. It was the willpower, the sheer determination to protect their home, that had made all the difference. But just as victory seemed certain, an unexpected message crackled over the comms. It wasn't from their mysterious allies. It wasn't from the Empire either. It was something different. A voice, cold and familiar. "This isn't over, Captain Hayes," the voice said, sending chills down his spine. "You've fought well, but you've made a grave mistake. You've triggered something you cannot comprehend. The Empire has allies, far more powerful than you can imagine." The message ended abruptly, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. For a moment, Hayes was speechless. His officers exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of the voice's words sinking in. Was it a bluff, or had they just unleashed something far more dangerous than they had anticipated? "What was that?" Hayes demanded. "Who was that?" "We don't know, sir," one of his officers replied, clearly shaken. "It didn't come from any known Empire communication channels. It was something else." Hayes clenched his jaw. He had a bad feeling about this. The Empire had already proven themselves ruthless and merciless, but this new development could change everything. "We can't let our guard down," Hayes said firmly, his voice steely with determination. "Prepare for anything. The battle isn't over yet." At that moment, the mysterious fleet of allies arrived once again, their ships moving into position with lightning speed. Captain Hayes knew he could rely on them. But the question now was, what had the Empire truly set in motion? And how far were they willing to go to make sure Earth fell? The battle raged on, the clash of ships and weapons echoing through space. The Empire's ships continued to fire with desperation, but their tactics were disorganized. They had lost their command, their morale, and now their chance of winning seemed to slip further away with every passing moment. But as the battle reached its zenith, the Earth's forces received a jolt of terror. A new fleet, far larger and more advanced than anything they had seen, appeared on the horizon. It wasn't the mysterious allies who had helped them so far. No, this was something else entirely. Something far more menacing. The new fleet moved forward with brutal efficiency. The ships were colossal, their weapons capable of wiping out entire fleets with a single blast. The darkness of their armor was a stark contrast to the bright energy pulses that erupted from their weapons. "This is bad," Hayes muttered under his breath. "This is exactly what that voice was warning us about." The massive fleet of the Empire's allies entered the fray, turning the tide of battle once more. Now, Earth's ships were outgunned and outclassed. The mysterious fleet that had come to their aid fought valiantly, but the new enemy's technology was far superior. "We need to fall back," one of Hayes' officers shouted. "We're outmatched." Hayes shook his head, unwilling to surrender just yet. He knew they couldn't give up. Not after everything they had fought for. "We don't retreat. Not while we still have a chance. We're going to fight until the very end." But even as the words left his mouth, he knew that the battle was slipping away from them. The Empire's allies were too powerful, and the Empire itself wasn't done yet. It seemed like the odds had become insurmountable. "Captain," came a familiar voice through the comms. It was the voice of their mysterious allies. "We've got one last chance to turn the tide. But we need your fleet to follow our lead. Are you ready to fight, Captain?" Without hesitation, Captain Hayes answered. "We're ready. Give us the signal." The mysterious fleet positioned themselves, lining up with humanity's remaining ships. The combined might of both forces, despite the overwhelming odds, stood together against the Empire's new allies. There was no turning back now. The war for Earth had reached its breaking point, and everyone knew that this final push would determine whether humanity survived or fell. "This is it," Hayes muttered. "Let's make sure they remember who Earth is." And with that, the final assault began. The battle for Earth had entered its most critical stage, and only time would tell whether humanity's determination would be enough to overcome the impossible odds they faced. The battle intensifies. The battlefield had become a chaotic maelstrom of flashing energy blasts, the screeching of metal, and the deafening roars of ship engines. Earth's fleet, though battered and outmatched, had refused to back down. They fought with every ounce of strength, every bit of rage, and every spark of defiance. They weren't just fighting for victory, they were fighting for survival. Captain Hayes gritted his teeth, staring at the view screen as the battle unfolded before him. The mysterious fleet of allies, those ships that had come to their rescue at the last moment, fought with an intensity that mirrored their own. Despite being outnumbered, they pressed forward, launching devastating attacks against the Empire's fleet and its newly arrived reinforcements. But the new enemy, the galactic force that had appeared out of nowhere, was relentless. Their ships moved with a terrifying grace, outmaneuvering Earth's ships and their allies at every turn. Each blast from their colossal weapons tore through the void of space, sending entire vessels spiraling out of control before disintegrating into nothingness. The situation was grim, and Hayes could feel the weight of it bearing down on him. Every instinct told him to retreat, to save what was left of his fleet, but he refused. This was Earth's fight, and Earth would not lose without giving every last breath. He could see the desperate expressions on his crew's faces, but there was no fear, only resolve. "We can't keep up with them," an officer shouted from behind him. "Their firepower is unmatched, and our ships are breaking apart." Hayes didn't take his eyes off the view screen. "We hold the line. Every second counts. We're buying time for something bigger." For a moment, he thought he saw something. Movement in the distance. The mysterious fleet, their ships gliding through space with stunning precision, appeared to be retreating. But just as quickly as the thought crossed his mind, a new wave of energy surged from the distance, and they turned to engage the enemy once more. It wasn't just about Earth anymore. It was about proving that the galaxy would not fall under the tyranny of the Galactic Empire and its cruel allies. Hayes understood that now more than ever. Meanwhile, on the front lines, a few key figures in the Earth fleet prepared for a desperate mission. Lieutenant Maria Sanchez, one of Hayes' top pilots, barked orders to her squadron as they moved in tight formation, dodging enemy fire. "Stay in formation. Keep your distance from their big ships. Focus on their smaller vessels. We need to make a dent." The squadron shot forward, a swarming mass of fighter ships darting between blasts and fire. The smaller ships of the Empire's allies were everywhere, their weapons devastatingly effective. Sanchez's hands gripped the controls tighter. She couldn't afford to hesitate. The first ship exploded, a magnificent display of light, as the squadron's missiles found their target. But there was no time to celebrate. Another enemy ship surged forward, its weapons aimed directly at Sanchez's unit. "We're being overwhelmed." Another pilot screamed over the comms. "We need backup." Hayes watched from the command deck as Sanchez and her team fought valiantly, but it was clear that they were no match for the overwhelming force of the new enemy. His thoughts were a blur, but the solution was clear. They couldn't keep fighting like this. They needed a plan, a way to strike back, a new strategy, one that might turn the tide of the war. "Hold on, everyone," Hayes said, turning toward his crew. "We've got one shot left. If this doesn't work, we'll have to make our final stand." He turned to the comms officer. "Send a signal to our allies. Tell them to begin the second phase. Now." The officer nodded, and began transmitting the message. Hayes could only hope that their allies understood the urgency, that the plan would work. The enemy's new fleet was powerful, but not invincible. They had a weakness, something Hayes had learned after weeks of reconnaissance. If they could exploit it, they might just win. Back on Earth, the people were watching the battle unfold. What had started as a war to defend their planet was now a battle for their very survival. Civilians and soldiers alike had rallied behind the fleet, supporting them with everything they had. Messages of hope and defiance flooded the communications networks. And then, as if the very air trembled with anticipation, a new signal came in. The mysterious fleet of allies had indeed answered Hayes' call. Their ships were approaching, their weapons blazing with a power unseen before. They were launching an attack so ferocious, so intense, that the entire Empire's fleet had to momentarily retreat. "We've got them," one of Hayes' officers shouted in disbelief. But Captain Hayes knew better. This was only a brief respite. The Empire would regroup, and when they did, the battle would resume, harder, fiercer, and more dangerous than ever before. "Get ready, everyone," Hayes said grimly. "This isn't over. Not by a long shot." The galactic battlefield was a grim reminder of how high the stakes had become. With the last of their forces combined with their mysterious allies, humanity's resolve was unwavering. The Galactic Empire had underestimated humanity's strength, but now they would learn the price of that mistake. The countdown to the final confrontation had begun, and in the cold vastness of space, the fight for Earth's survival would soon reach its climactic end. The final stand. The space around Earth had become a chaotic war zone. The remnants of the once proud Galactic Empire fleet scattered in every direction, their once dominant warships now little more than burning wrecks. The alien forces that had sought to destroy humanity had underestimated the power of Earth's resistance. Now, with their mysterious allies joining the fight, the tide had turned. Captain Hayes stood at the command deck, his face grim. The distant flashes of battle lit up the space around them, reflecting the desperation and fury of both sides. He could see the Empire's forces retreating, but he knew it wasn't over. They would regroup. They always did. And when they returned, they would come back with a vengeance. "All ships, stay in position," Hayes ordered firmly. "We're not out of this yet. We need to be ready for the final wave." The crew nodded, but Hayes could see the tension in their faces. The mysterious fleet of allies, powerful as they were, could only hold off the Empire's forces for so long. Everyone knew that the final assault would be the hardest, the most dangerous of them all. But Hayes couldn't afford to let fear creep in. If they were to win this war, humanity needed to hold strong. On the front lines, Lieutenant Maria Sanchez barked commands to her squadron, her fingers twitching over the controls of her fighter. The battle had shifted in their favor, but the real test was yet to come. The Empire's remaining forces had regrouped, their fleet now moving in for the final push. "Stay sharp, everyone," Sanchez said, her voice unwavering despite the tension. "We know what they're capable of, but we have something they don't. We've got each other, and we've got Earth on our side." The squadron moved into position, locking their sights on the enemy fleet as it closed in. The Empire's warships, massive and menacing, loomed on the horizon. Sanchez's squadron was ready for the fight of their lives, and they would give everything they had to protect their home. The first volley of energy blasts lit up the space between the two forces. The air crackled with tension, the deafening sounds of combat reverberating through the vast emptiness. Sanchez maneuvered her fighter between enemy fire, her heart racing in time with the flashing lights of the battlefield. Firing. Sanchez shouted as her missiles tore through space, homing in on their targets. The enemy ship erupted into flames, but it was only a temporary victory. A new wave of ships emerged from the darkness, more formidable and determined than ever before. "We need to take out their flagship," Sanchez said, her eyes narrowing as the massive ship loomed ahead. "That's the key to ending this. Without their command ship, the Empire will fall apart." Back at the command deck, Hayes could see the situation was growing more dire. The enemy's flagship was looming larger on the view screen, its heavy artillery unleashing a barrage of destruction. His thoughts raced. He knew that if the Empire's command ship wasn't destroyed, their forces would remain coordinated. It had to be neutralized, and fast. "Ready all weapons," Hayes ordered. "Target the flagship. We need to take it down now." But just as he was about to issue the order for the final strike, the ship shook violently, throwing everyone off balance. A series of explosions rocked the hull, sending crew members scrambling to their posts. Hayes gripped the command console as alarms blared throughout the ship. "We've been hit," an officer shouted. "Hull breach in the starboard wing. We can't hold them off much longer." Another officer yelled. "The flagship is too well defended." But Captain Hayes was undeterred. "We'll hold them off as long as we can," he said, his voice low but resolute. "Get the fleet ready for the final push. We're taking that ship down, one way or another." On the surface of Earth, people from all over the world watched in silence, their hearts gripped with fear and hope. The battle for their planet had reached its most critical moment. Families huddled together, praying for the safety of the fleet and the mysterious allies who had come to their aid. Across the globe, humans of all walks of life found themselves united in a shared purpose: survival. As the battle raged above them, they knew that their fate was in the hands of the soldiers in space. They could only wait and hope. In space, the final clash between the two forces was about to begin. The Empire's flagship, now within range, was preparing to fire the final, most devastating weapon it possessed. The crew of the Earth fleet watched in horror as the ship powered up its massive cannon. Sanchez's squadron, battered but determined, surged forward one last time, weaving in and out of the barrage of energy blasts. It was all or nothing. "Here we go," Sanchez said, her voice steady. "For Earth." The fleet's weapons fired in unison, a barrage of lasers, missiles, and energy beams aimed at the heart of the Empire's flagship. The enemy ship erupted in a blinding explosion, its massive hull splitting apart, the lights flickering out as the command ship was reduced to a smoldering wreck. The Empire's forces, leaderless and disorganized, fell into chaos. The remaining ships scattered, trying to regroup, but it was too late. The battle had been won. Back at the command deck, Hayes exhaled in relief. The war wasn't over, but this battle was theirs. The Empire had been defeated, and humanity had sent a clear message to the galaxy. Earth was no longer to be underestimated. "We did it," Hayes said, his voice hoarse. "The fight isn't over, but today, we've won." The final battle of the war had ended, but the consequences of the Galactic Empire's betrayal would echo through the stars for years to come. Humanity had stood up and fought back, proving that they would not go quietly into the dark void of space. For now, they could rest, but they knew the galaxy would never be the same again. A new beginning. The victory in space was celebrated across Earth, though the cost of war was not forgotten. The Empire's ships, once a terror to the galaxy, were now scattered remnants, unable to recover from the devastating blow they had suffered at humanity's hands. Earth had held its ground, but humanity knew the galaxy was vast, and the future would be shaped by the decisions they made next. Captain Hayes stood on the deck of the Earth fleet's flagship, watching the view of space. The distant stars now felt less cold, as if they had become a little warmer, a little more familiar. The battle was over for now, but Hayes had a feeling that this was only the beginning of something far greater. "We've won," said Lieutenant Maria Sanchez, stepping beside him. Her face showed the exhaustion of the long battle, but there was a glimmer of pride in her eyes. "The fleet's intact, and the Empire's fleet is in ruins. But what now?" Hayes sighed, turning toward her. "We rebuild, Maria. We rebuild and prepare for the future. The galaxy is watching us now." Sanchez nodded slowly. She had fought beside him and had witnessed humanity's resolve firsthand. "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked, her voice low. Hayes looked out over the stars once again. They may, he said, but now they know the price of underestimating humanity. We won't be pushed around again. We have the strength to defend ourselves, and we have the allies who believe in us. The Earth fleet, once a fledgling force compared to the Empire, had now proven itself on the galactic stage. The warning that humanity had sent to the Galactic Empire had reverberated across the stars. No longer would Earth be seen as a vulnerable, insignificant planet. Humanity had shown the galaxy that it could fight back, that it would never accept domination or tyranny. On Earth, the aftermath of the battle was a mix of celebration and solemn reflection. People filled the streets, cheering for the victory, waving flags, and embracing one another. But even in their joy, they knew the weight of the battle that had been fought. There were families who had lost loved ones, soldiers who had paid the ultimate price, and civilians who had lived in fear. The scars of war would take time to heal. Yet the victory gave Earth a new sense of purpose. The entire world was united in their resolve. The human race, which had once been divided by borders and ideologies, was now more unified than ever. Nations that had fought each other for centuries now stood side by side, committed to defending their world and exploring the stars beyond. Humanity's place in the galaxy had changed forever. No longer would they be a footnote in the history of the cosmos. No longer would they be dismissed as a small, insignificant species. They had proven that, when pushed to the brink, they would rise up, they would fight, and they would win. Back in space, the remains of the Empire's fleet drifted aimlessly, their once proud warships now nothing more than twisted metal. The allies who had joined humanity in its fight against the Empire remained at a distance, watching silently. They had seen humanity's strength, and they had witnessed their bravery. The battle had been won, but the true test of humanity's future was yet to come. The leaders of Earth knew that there were other dangers in the galaxy, other threats that would seek to take advantage of the power vacuum left by the Empire's defeat. But they also knew that humanity had earned its place among the stars. "We're not done yet," Hayes said quietly, turning to Sanchez. "The galaxy is vast, and we've only just begun to explore it. There will be new challenges, new enemies, and perhaps new allies, but we will face them head-on, together." Sanchez smiled. "We've faced the worst and come out on top. I think we're ready for whatever comes next." The Earth fleet moved into a new era, its mission now to explore, to protect, and to forge new alliances across the galaxy. Captain Hayes and Lieutenant Sanchez knew that the future would be uncertain, but they were certain of one thing: humanity had proven itself, and there would be no going back. The Galactic Empire had made a grave mistake by underestimating the power of humanity. And now, Earth stood tall, an unyielding force in the galaxy, a beacon of hope, and a reminder that no matter how great the threat, humanity would always rise. As Earth's fleet ventured further into space, the echoes of their warning reverberated throughout the galaxy, ensuring that no empire, no matter how mighty, would dare make the same mistake again. The legacy of humanity's victory would inspire generations to come, and the story of the day when the Galactic Empire betrayed humanity would be told across the stars for centuries. And so, as humanity's ships sailed through the stars, they carried with them not just the promise of exploration, but the certainty that they would protect their home, their people, and their place in the galaxy forever.